The message was still glowing on the screen when she stepped out of the shower. Understanding. That's what she'd named him in her contacts. Like it was a code. Like she thought I'd never see it. 2 weeks away. Our nights together. I adore you. My hands went cold. I locked the phone and set it back on the nightstand exactly where I'd found it. Through the bathroom door, I could hear her humming, that little tune she'd started humming last month, the one that made my stomach turn now that I understood what it meant. She emerged in a cloud of steam, wrapped in the towel I'd bought her hair dripping down her back. She didn't even glance at her phone. Just started getting dressed like everything was normal. Like our entire marriage wasn't a lie wearing a smile. My name is Derek. I'm 37. And in that moment, I understood something with absolute clarity. I wasn't angry. I was architect. Hey, she said, kissing my shoulder. You okay? You look pale. Fine, I said. Just tired. She nodded and went downstairs to make coffee. I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at her phone, calculating. 2 weeks away meant a trip. A planned trip. Which meant she'd booked it. Which meant there was a paper trail. By the time she returned with my coffee, I'd already made my decision. She wasn't going to see those 2 weeks coming. Neither was understanding. But they were both about to understand something very different. Her calendar was open on her laptop. She'd left it on the kitchen counter. Careless, the way people are when they think they're invisible. I photographed every page. The trip was scheduled for 3 weeks from now. A conference in San Francisco. Except the conference didn't exist. I checked. No registration. No venue. Just a lie she'd constructed so carefully that she'd probably started believing it herself. Understanding was booked at the same hotel. The St. Regis. 4 nights. Room 1847. I found his real name buried in her deleted emails. Marcus Webb. 39. Some kind of tech consultant. His LinkedIn showed a wedding photo. Him and a blonde woman smiling at the camera. 2 kids in the background. A golden retriever. The American dream packaged and presented. My wife wanted to dismantle that dream the same way she was dismantling mine. I started making calls. Quietly. Systematically. First to Marcus's company, a casual inquiry about his availability for a consulting contract. They told me he was out of office frequently. Very frequently. Concerning, actually, given his current project status. Then I called his wife's office, pretending to be a client trying to reach her husband. She transferred me to his direct line. He didn't answer. I left a message. Hi Marcus, calling about the upcoming San Francisco trip. Just want to confirm the hotel arrangements are still working for you and your wife. By evening, his company had flagged his travel patterns. My wife was still humming that tune. She had no idea the clock was ticking on her escape plan. I hired a private investigator named Carla. Discreet. Professional. No questions asked. I need documentation, I told her. Photos, timestamps, locations. Everything. She nodded like she'd heard this story 1,000 times. Maybe she had. Meanwhile, my wife was planning. I watched her research restaurants in San Francisco. Book spa appointments. Practice her lie in the mirror. I could see her doing it, rehearsing the story about the conference, about the networking, about being so busy she'd barely have time to call. She was getting ready to vanish into someone else's arms while I stayed home maintaining the fiction of our marriage. I accessed her email through the password she'd carelessly written in a notebook in her desk drawer. Hundreds of messages from Marcus. Years of them actually. Not 2 weeks. Years. He'd been weaving himself into her life since before I knew his name existed. Can't stop thinking about you, he'd written last month. Your husband is lucky. Doesn't deserve you. My wife had responded. He never really did. I read that sentence 5 times. Then I forwarded every single email to Marcus's personal computer, the one registered to his home address. Anonymous sender. No trace back to me. His wife would find them eventually. Maybe when she opened his laptop. Maybe when she got the notification that someone had accessed his cloud storage. Maybe when his company started asking uncomfortable questions about why he'd been traveling so much. I didn't need to do anything else. Just plant the seeds and watch them grow. Carla sent me the first photographs on day 5. My wife and Marcus at a hotel bar downtown. His hand on her lower back. Her head tilted toward him like he'd invented gravity just to keep her anchored. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. on a Wednesday, a time when she told me she was in back-to-back client meetings. More photos followed. A boutique hotel room. Her dress discarded on a chair. His hand reaching for her in the darkness. The intimacy of it made me feel like I was watching someone else's marriage, not my own. I forwarded the photos to an email account I'd created. Subject line, your husband's real schedule. Marcus's wife would receive it in exactly 3 weeks, the day before they were supposed to leave for San Francisco. My wife came home that evening smelling like his cologne. She kissed me hello and asked about my day. I told her it was fine. We ate dinner. We watched television. We existed in the same room like two people performing a play that had already ended. I'm going to that conference in 3 weeks, she said casually during a commercial break. I know, I said. It should be good. Good networking opportunity. She settled into my shoulder and I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just the cold satisfaction of knowing exactly what was coming. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus, counting the days. She smiled at the screen. I smiled at my own reflection in the dark television. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait. Marcus's wife called his office on day 18. I know because Carla sent me a report. She'd been monitoring his company email and the fallout was already beginning. HR had flagged unusual travel patterns. His projects were being reassigned. Questions were being asked. He was panicking. My wife didn't know yet. She was still humming that tune, still planning outfits, still living in the bubble of her own deception. But the bubble was about to pop in ways she couldn't imagine. I hired a lawyer. Quietly. We discussed asset protection, documentation, custody considerations, all the framework for what was coming. He asked me if I wanted to try counseling first. No, I said. I want her to understand that actions have consequences. On day 21, Marcus's wife accessed his cloud storage and found every email, every photo, every promise he'd made to my wife about their future together. She screenshotted everything and sent it to his company, his family, and, most importantly, to the woman who'd promised to love him forever. Marcus's wife also sent copies to my email address. A woman scorned recognizes another one coming. That night, my wife's phone started ringing. Marcus. Over and over. She didn't answer. Just stared at the screen like it might explode. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing, she lied. Just work stuff. But her hands were shaking. By midnight she knew. His wife had made sure of it. The emails forwarded to her personal account. The photos attached. The message simple and devastating. He's all yours. But you should know he has a wife. And 2 children. My wife went to the bathroom and locked the door. I heard her crying through the walls. And I felt absolutely nothing. She didn't go to San Francisco. She called the conference organizers and canceled. Told them she had a family emergency. They probably assumed someone had died. In a way, someone had the version of her marriage that had existed in her mind. Marcus stopped responding to her calls by day 3. His wife had made sure of that. She'd contacted his company, his family, his church. She'd systematized his destruction with the precision of someone who'd been planning it in her head for years, waiting for proof. My wife sat in our living room and stared at nothing. We need to talk, she finally said on day 5. Okay, I said. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I want to fix this. I want to fix us. She was crying. Real tears. The kind that come when you finally understand the weight of what you've done. How long? I asked. 3 years, she whispered. 3 years. We'd been married 5. She'd spent more than half our marriage in someone else's arms. I don't think this can be fixed, I said quietly. Please. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. Oh. You'll what? Stop being who you are? Stop wanting him? I leaned back in my chair. You made your choice every single day for 3 years. You don't get to undo that with an apology. She sobbed into her hands. I felt the cold satisfaction of watching someone finally understand the consequences of their own actions. But underneath it, something else was stirring, something that felt dangerously like regret. Because destroying her hadn't made me feel better. It had only proven how far I was willing to go to make someone else suffer. And that terrified me more than her infidelity ever had. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday. My lawyer had structured everything carefully. She got the house, but I kept the investments. Equal split on retirement accounts. No alimony. Clean. Surgical. The kind of divorce that leaves no room for reconciliation. She signed without argument. Marcus's marriage was imploding in real time. His wife had leaked his emails to his company, and he was being forced out. His children were asking questions about why Daddy was moving to an apartment. He tried calling my wife twice, but she didn't answer. He was drowning and she'd already moved on to the next thing, survival. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. I'd orchestrated the destruction of 2 marriages with surgical precision. Marcus was losing everything. My wife was losing everything. And I was sitting in an empty house, realizing that winning had cost me the ability to feel anything at all. One evening, I saw my wife at a grocery store. She looked smaller, diminished. She was buying wine and ice cream, the standard breakup diet. When she saw me, she froze. "Derek," she said quietly. I almost didn't respond. But something in me, some remnant of the man I'd been before, made me nod. "I deserve this," she said. "I know that now. I deserved worse, actually." "Yes," I agreed. "You did." She nodded and walked away. And I realized in that moment that destroying her hadn't healed me. It had only shown me how broken I'd become, a man willing to dismantle lives to avoid facing his own pain. The irony was exquisite, and I was finally starting to understand it. 6 months later, I sat in a therapist's office and told her everything. The phone, the emails, the photos, the careful, systematic destruction of 2 people's lives. She listened without judgment, and when I finished, she asked a question that broke something open in me. "What were you hoping would happen?" I didn't have an answer. My wife had rebuilt her life in a small apartment across town. She was working at a nonprofit helping people navigate divorce. The irony wasn't lost on me. She transformed her betrayal into something purposeful. She was healing by helping others heal. Marcus was in therapy too, according to Carla's final report. His marriage was over, but he was fighting for custody of his kids. Trying to be present. Trying to understand why he'd thrown away something real for something false. And me? I was sitting in a therapist's office, finally admitting that revenge had poisoned me in ways I couldn't quantify. I'd won. I'd destroyed them both. I'd proven that I could architect devastation with precision and patience. But the person I'd become in the process was someone I didn't recognize. Someone cold. Someone capable of watching other people suffer and calling it justice. I called my wife and asked to meet. We sat in a coffee shop and I told her the truth, that I'd known about Marcus, that I'd orchestrated his wife finding out, that I'd systematically destroyed their lives as punishment for her betrayal. She didn't cry. Just stared at me with eyes that looked sad and old. "I'm sorry," I said. "Not for what you did, but for what I became because of it." She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry too. For everything. We didn't reconcile. Some things can't be repaired. But we stopped being enemies. We became 2 people who destroyed each other and survived it. That was enough. It had to be."